Lawyers for Prince Andrew have written to a US judge to demand a trial by jury in the civil sexual assault case brought against him by Virginia Giuffre.
The Duke of York has taken the decision to face his accuser in court and become the first member of the modern royal family to submit to being cross-examined over serious allegations which he has consistently denied. We're joined now to discuss this by American criminal lawyer Rachel Fiset, and we also have ITV News' royal editor Chris Shipp. Chris, if we can start with you, because of course the headlines have been written for the last few months over this, but this morning feels like a dramatic sea change in regards to Prince Andrew's position. You just have to look at the front of the Sun, for example. Andrew, I'll go to trial, no sweat. He's going to face a jury, or that's what he's asking for. How much of a surprise is this?
Well, you know, what else do I come on this show to talk about? There's always seems to be a Prince Andrew development. And yeah, yesterday was a significant moment because after he lost that appeal to dismiss the case a couple of weeks ago, this was therefore inevitable. He has to officially respond to the complaint. That's the lawsuit that Virginia Giuffre filed last August, and he has to, respond to it point by point. And if you go through this list, it's like point 36, point 37, point 38. It goes through paragraph by paragraph, all of her allegations, and paragraph by paragraph, he denies them. I mean, the thing that's caught all of our attention is the fact at the very end, he said, Prince Andrew hereby demands a trial by jury. Now, I'm told by legal experts, much more qualified than me, that that's quite normal in America. That's what you have to do. But the fact you've got a member of the royal family, the fact you've got the Queen's son demanding a trial by jury, against these serious allegations, that's why it's made such big headlines. And that's why the Queen got rid of all of his titles and patronages a couple of weeks ago, because she knew this would happen. She knew it would be on the news, and she knew we'd be talking about it. And it's going to be a sort of, a very difficult and messy affair.
Rachel, we were talking to Mitchell Epner, former Assistant US Attorney General, about half an hour or so ago about this. And he was saying that his understanding of the reason why he put this demand in was that Virginia Giuffre has always demanded a trial by jury. And if he didn't put that in too, if she suddenly decided to drop that demand, he would end up being seen only by a judge who he claimed is actually not being particularly favourable to Prince Andrew's position so far. Do you see it as partly that?
I think that analysis is spot on. So in America, you have a right to a jury trial, and the plaintiff, which in this case is Virginia Giuffre, generally likes to have a jury trial. Juries are generally a little bit more receptive to plaintiffs, and the defendants often would rather just have a trial in front of the judge. However, if you don't say, I want a jury trial, then you could waive your right to the jury trial, and then it would be back to Virginia Giuffre to say whether or not she wanted the jury trial. And exactly as you just pointed out, this judge has not been so friendly to Andrew thus far. So I think they are not taking any kind of risk that that jury trial would be waived should they get to that point.
There are 11 points, 11 reasons that the Duke submitted, Rachel, as to why they think the case should be dismissed. A couple of them that would be worth going through with you so you can explain whether there's any traction with them. That Ms Giuffre is a permanent resident of Australia, so she shouldn't be tried, this case shouldn't be tried in America. What's the reaction to that?
So what they're doing is they are preserving their defenses, their affirmative defenses, and they will also take discovery on those defenses. So if they decide that she's not a resident in the United States and for some reason the court doesn't have jurisdiction over this case because she's not a resident in the United States and he's not a resident in the United States, they're going to say, hey, court, dismiss this case. You have no right to hear it anyway. I don't think that goes very far, particularly as some of these acts were alleged to have taken place in New York.
OK. Andrew's lawyers have asserted that Ms Giuffre should not be able to proceed because her claim for damages is too speculative to be recovered at law.
So this is legalese, and damages need to be specific. You can't just say, oh, I have damages, I don't know what they are. You need to spell out your damages. your money, what you would be compensated for your pain, that kind of thing. So that is a very legalese defense. At this point, I don't think that one goes anywhere either.
I mean, interesting, of the 11 points, I think we talked to some of them with Mitchell earlier on as well. Do you think there's any there that they have a case with regards to throwing out this case full stop? Or, in your legal experience, do you see this going to trial?
Well, they've raised the waiver and settlement agreement again. And so now they're going to do discovery on that waiver and settlement agreement. And if you'll recall, that's what we were discussing a few weeks ago when they were trying to dismiss the case on the face of the waiver and settlement agreement. And now they're saying, hey, we're going to do discovery on this, meaning we're going to go get some more facts and see if Andrew should have been barred from suit as a result of the settlement agreement. That may get some traction should they find some facts that it looked like he was meant to be included in that agreement. The others, there's a statute of limitations defense, there's a consent defense, which on its face doesn't really go too far in a rape or sexual assault case. But he will definitely do his diligence on a few of those and see if there's any traction.
Yeah.
I think as of yet, they might not know if there is because they don't know the facts.
Yeah, by the consent issue, you mean the age of consent issue and whether that was relevant, I think, don't you, Rachel? Chris, this coming to you, in the midst of all of this, whether it goes to trial and every detail is played out in court with cameras or not, it's not going to go away, is it? And you wonder what the Queen and the rest of the royal family feel about the idea of seeing Prince Andrew in a dock and us all watching every bit of the prosecution's case and his response.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly why the Queen acted as she did a couple of weeks ago when she summoned him to Windsor Castle and effectively stripped her son of all of his royal patronages, made him effectively an ex-royal. You know, and we're giving this much attention to a sort of paper filing. What would we do, for example, if there were to be a full trial? Of course, we're not at that stage yet. And talking to Prince Andrew's people yesterday and, you know, legal experts, there is still the possibility that both sides could decide to settle at some point between now and it reaching trial. But you do get a sense that Prince Andrew's prepared to fight hard as he possibly can. And if you look at one of the defences in there, which is called the doctrine of unclean hands, it suggests that his team is going to accuse Virginia Giuffre of herself acting unethically in Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking operation. I mean, so if it's going to be that long, that protracted, if it's going to be that messy, no wonder the Queen decided that he has to fight this as a private citizen. And that's why she put some clear blue water between the royal family and him.
And meanwhile, even the details, these technical details are not helpful, are they? Because, you know, there's the challenge of this photograph, this key photograph that we've all seen of Prince Andrew and Virginia Giuffre together. You know, in the document, it says Prince Andrew lacks sufficient information to admit or deny the allegation that there exists photographic evidence of his alleged meeting with Giuffre. I mean, that's just going to make people think, whatever the legal correctness of that sentence, what is he talking about? We've seen the picture.
Yeah, I mean, actually, when you look at that, and you've got it on my page there, it's sort of underlined point 38, which is the point 38 is in her complaint back in August when she said, this is the photograph of me, Prince Andrew, at Ghislaine Maxwell's house, after which she alleges that she went on to be sexually abused by Prince Andrew. And therefore, you get his point 38 in response. Prince Andrew lacks sufficient information to admit or deny. Now, this photograph is key. And I think his side haven't yet decided quite how they're going to deal with that, because I still think it's the plaintiff, Virginia Giuffre, that's one of the biggest assets that she has. So, yeah, and the other point, and you raised this earlier about the whole issue of Australia, she lives there. I mean, you know, they're going to try and say, look, this court doesn't have jurisdiction over this case. His sides tell me that remains a point of interest. So still perhaps trying to get this case thrown out on the basis of a legal technicality. As we know, the judge didn't look at that very favourably last time. I
think, interestingly, Rachel, that as Kate's point, you know, when we, from the outside with no experience of the law, see a response which is, you know, we can't confirm or deny whether there's photographic evidence of this alleged meeting exists. When we can see it, that seems very surreal.
Right. It's meant to confuse. It's really meant to do no harm. So when Prince Andrew's lawyers are filing this, they don't exactly know what to say here, and they absolutely don't want to admit that's a genuine photograph, but it's really a little hard to deny it. So you get some words on a page that don't make a lot of sense.
It's basically clever waffle to just say, basically.
I'm glad you described it like that.
Okay.
Rachel Fiset, thank you for joining us this morning. Chris, good to get your input as ever.
Thank you very much.